joining me now is Aberdeen Standard Investments senior political economist Stephanie Kelly. Eamon Javers again still with us right now. Stephanie, some strong words from Larry Kudlow. He's obviously out there telling people that the Trump administration is handling things well. What do you see as the biggest difference between maintaining President Trump's administration and possibly having a Joe Biden one?
I think the reality is that although Kudlow's comments point to that very traditional assessment of Republicans being much more kind of economic minded and more, especially among investors, seem to be more business friendly, the reality is we're in the middle of an incredibly significant global recession, and the US has not been immune to that by any means. We've got like 30 million voters who are out of jobs at the moment. And so I think that's going to be the difference maker is, can the Republicans win the argument that the pandemic is an external issue that the Trump administration has dealt with as well as they could? Or will he end up getting blamed for the kind of extent of the damage you've seen, particularly with his key voters, who are probably those who are also, on those unemployment benefits that are coming down?
In your mind, as you take a look at both tickets, there have to be marked differences, right, between the two of them, and perhaps some similarities. What exactly are the key differences from a political economy standpoint that you are seeing between those administrations?
I think they're actually genuinely, at a crossroads in the United States around the shape of fiscal policy. Now, I do think that if President Trump got reelected and he has, Republicans in the House and the Senate, or indeed just in majority in the Senate, I think that you continue to see this low tax approach. Some business support continuing, but much less of the kind of significant support we've seen in the recent bills. Under Biden, you're actually talking about a really significant shift in the composition of fiscal spending that leads to much more spending that likely has to be funded through higher tax, particularly corporate tax rates and high income tax rates.
Eamon Javers, let's bring you into the conversation here. What's going to win this election? Are we going to give enough tax credits, tax breaks, tax cuts, everything else out there to get people to say, you know what, in a Trump administration, I'll get those. That's enough to buy my vote, so to speak? Or do you think that there's going to be a real tilt towards other big social issues there, Eamon?
Yeah, look, Dom, I don't think this is going to be about tax cuts. That's sort of in the rearview mirror politically for a lot of Americans. There is some concern among Republicans that Biden would come in and raise taxes, absolutely. But this is going to be an election decided by the sort of double barrel of the virus and the economy, right? I mean, you're seeing an epic pandemic across the world that is crippling America's ability to go to work. That's why I'm standing in my living room right now. Americans are feeling that day in and day out. And also this, the free fall that we saw, the economy earlier in the year, the millions of Americans who lost their jobs. You're starting to see some of the airlines announcing now that they're going to make layoffs permanent now that they've emerged from that government funding delay that mandated that they weren't able to lay off people. As you see those rounds of layoffs, and if the virus doesn't improve, I think that's very bad for the president, even though we do see this uptick in the poll numbers that I just read you. I think the president really is sort of strapped to the virus and the economy here, and the fate there is his fate politically.
Stephanie, it's hard to imagine anyone saying that there are similarities between a possible Biden administration and that of President Trump. Yet one of the experts I talked to said, you know what, when it comes to China, they could be pretty similar. Is that fair to say that a Biden administration and a Trump administration would both look at China's and our trade policies in a similar fashion?
I think it's useful to think about it in terms of the path you get to the outcome with China versus the actual outcome itself. I think the reality is it's very clear in, voter polling, it's very clear among Democrats and Republicans that there are deep skepticisms about the Chinese regime and issues around transparency and particularly around technology. Those are things that are shared. I think that's very clear. It's more around the path that we would see. And here specifically, I think it's rather than necessarily waking up on a Monday morning to a tweet saying that the trade deal is done or indeed that the trade deal is back on. I think under Biden, it would be much more strategic. I think he'd launch a strategic review. He'd want to work more with European partners to do a more multilateral approach. It doesn't mean that the kind of US and China become close again by any means. It's just the path you have to get to what is, I think, an ongoing strategic rivalry looks quite different. It feels different for investors in terms of volatility.
All right. And Stephanie, before we let you go really quickly here, what do you think in your mind is going to be the key to this particular election?
I think ultimately it's going to come down to pretty highly uncertain turnout, in particular at the moment with Biden's lead the way it looks, 9 percentage points at national. That does suggest that it should translate into a strong electoral college victory, but we know that the pandemic itself is changing the way voters see postal voting. We have a lot of issues around trust of postal voting. We know the Democrats rely on postal voting, particularly for certain key demographics. And so I think that's ultimately going to make or break is, can the Democrats get their voters, which they know they have enough, can they get them out to actually win the election? I think where the Republicans are being quite effective in terms of their messaging is around making sure that they can rally up their voters. So it is about turnout on the day.